Hello, YouTube. I have a number of videos about UFOs sighted near Japan on the Soviet and Russian side for decades. The Kuril Islands, island of Sakhalin, and nearby seas and territories. And it's very interesting and fascinating because very few people talk about it. But much is going on in that area. Now, the Russians, of course, are also interested in what's going on across the border, so to say, in Japan, and they also pay attention to reports about UFOs and such phenomena in Japan. So, I looked at some of the interesting reports in the Russian media, and obviously the source has to be old spy information. I don't think they would print anything new. Let's not fool ourselves. And what is it that interests them? So based on the Russian media reports, let me tell you a few interesting things. On April 17, 1981, the crew of a Japanese cargo ship located off the west coast of Japan, 300 kilometers from the city of Kanazawa, observed a disc-shaped UFO taking off from the ocean. The object emitted a blue light and surfaced, raised such a wave that it almost covered the ship. After that, the unidentified object hovered in the air and approached the cargo ship, circled it. Then the flying disc circled around the ship for 15 minutes, and then it hovered in the air. As noted by eyewitnesses, it was moving around the ship so fast that it was impossible to see it well, except for those moments when it was hovering in the air. When the object plunged into the water again, it again raised a huge wave that damaged the ship. And this is not surprising because the size of this object, by estimates of Captain Usuda, was 4 to 5 times the length of the vessel. During the flight, UFO communications did not work. During the flight of the UFO, the communication did not work, and the arrows of the navigation devices rotated in a circle at the same speed as the UFO itself circled around the ship. Later, the official press attaché of the Japanese Coast Guard stated the following about this incident. Based on the results of the interviews with crew members and on the basis of atypical damage to the hull of the vessel, we believe that it has encountered something unusual. Officially, we call it unidentified object, in other words, a UFO. The Russian media stated that this is not the only recognition of the existence of the UFO phenomenon. Official Japanese government agencies and officials admitted to. So back in 1967, General Kanzi Ishikawa, who was at the time the chief of the staff of the Air Force, said the following: in the event that UFOs are flying objects that hover in the air, they can obviously be located using radar, and numerous facts indicate that they were tracked using radar. Therefore, UFOs really exist, and perhaps they come from outer space. Another Japanese military officer, General Akira Hirano, admitted in September of 1977, "We often observe unknown flying objects in the sky, and we're studying them without any hype." Another interesting statement was made in December 2007 by Japanese Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba. So he said, "There is no reason to dispute that UFOs exist and are controlled by another life form." Thus, while the military authorities of many countries remain silent about the UFO phenomena or organize campaigns through controlled media to discredit the phenomenon, the military departments of these countries continue to study this phenomenon calmly and busily. Some cases that the Russians have published and obviously have an interest to are as follows. In 1952, there was a strange UFO incident at the Haneda Air Force Base located near Tokyo. I must bring your attention to some of my videos and the strange 1952 cases in the Russian Far East, not far from Japan. You will find them very interesting. But let's get back to this case. On August 5, 1952, two operators of the Air Force Control Tower at the base noticed a bright light in the sky. This object approached the base and hovered near the control tower. After looking closely at the bright glow, people examined the dark, round object. This unidentified object then began to fly around the base, performing aerial maneuvers of varying degrees of complexity, and it was perfectly visible both visually and on radar. The mysterious intruder was immediately reported to the base authorities, and an F-94 fighter jet was sent with the pilot W.R. Holder, who began to pursue the strange object, but could not even get close to it. The report of this incident reads as follows. The F-94 began chasing the UFO, also tracked by ground radar, and the object made a series of circular maneuvers, repeated several times. At some point, the UFO suddenly sped off at a speed of 300 knots, about 345 miles per hour, splitting into three separate radar targets at spaced intervals. Contact with UFO, neither by radar or contact with UFOs, either by radar or visually from the Haneda airbase, was maintained for more than 30 minutes. During this period, scattered eyewitnesses saw UFOs exactly where the radar showed them to be. The UFO maneuvers were so clearly under intellectual control, meaning under some control of some intellectual beings, that Major Dewey Fournette, a representative of the Blue Book project at the Pentagon, chose it as one of the examples that prove that UFOs are spaceships from some other planet. All this, of course, was not reported to the public and was carefully hidden under the cover, so to say. The official explanation issued to the military was that eyewitnesses saw a star-like light from a bright star and that radar readings were false radar echoes caused by a layer of temperature inversion. Let's move on. Let's see what else interests Russian media. In 1963, a UFO visited the Naha airbase in Okinawa. There is a detailed report submitted by the base staff. In it, an eyewitness named Marty says that he was watching the sky with a partner named Frank around 11:40 p.m. on June 26, 1963, when they saw in the sky something in the sky that they could not explain. It wasn't like anything we've ever seen before. I took out my binoculars for a better view. We didn't use the term UFO at that point, but we knew that the ship we saw did not match anything in the Air Force aircraft inventory. We saw a large, slow-moving disk moving in steady northerly direction from above our base. We didn't see the usual flashing navigation lights or red or green lights on the ends of the wings, but all pilots who fly at night should have their aircraft's navigation lights on. It wasn't an unusual cloud formation, flare, or weather balloon. In the Air Force, working as communication specialists in control towers and around busy flight lines, Frank and I were well aware of the most types of aircraft in the military inventory. The object was moving at a speed of about 100 knots and held a steady altitude of 3,000 to 4,000 feet. It had a diameter of about 75 feet. We didn't see antennas, domes, portholes, or markings. It was quiet and made no engine noise. Having the shape of a disc, it looked flat. The outer surface of the ship seemed smooth, made of a dull but reflective metallic material. Its outer edges seemed razor thin. At first, Marty and Frank were afraid that a UFO would attack them, and they had already decided to get out of there, but fortunately the object was going in the opposite direction from them, and they relaxed a little. Then they climbed up the building's fire escape to observe the strange object, and they did so until it disappeared from sight. Then they were confused about what to do with this case and who to tell about it. When they reported the sighting, they were informed that there were no signals on the radar. In the following days, Marty began to aim at the sky in the hope of seeing a UFO again, and after several weeks of futile searches, he was successful. For several weeks, I spent my free time watching the night sky and hoping for another observation. I even especially bought a Nikon 8mm camera. I carried it with me whenever I went, just in case. My hopes of seeing a UFO began to fade after a few weeks. However, as soon as I started to think that the earlier sighting was just a one-time flyby, I saw it again. Returning to the barracks after the second shift at the communication center, I decided to rest a little. I was sitting in a chair on the second floor outside the boarding area. Putting my feet on the railing, I began to remember the first observation. Since I was alone, this thought scared the hell out of me. Shortly before 1 a.m., it reappeared. A ship similar to the one Frank and I had seen a month earlier. In an instant, my mind switched from a relaxed state to a fight-or-flight state. My body froze and my adrenaline level skyrocketed. My hair stood on end and my heart beat faster. I couldn't move my legs and my camera wasn't with me. I left it in my room. I mentally calculated the best course of action. I was sitting alone in the dark near my barracks and there was no one around except UFOs. Soon common sense prevailed because no light rays were shooting at me from the ship, and it became clear that it did not pay attention to me and was moving north from my position, thank God. Let's go on. Back in 2018, the Japanese military denied the very fact of the existence of aliens, but now they act diametrically opposite. Japanese defense minister at the time, Taro Kono, had already stated that he would like to study the records of incidents that the Pentagon has officially recognized. And then another more interesting statement: the country will work out a detailed plan in case of an encounter with aliens. May 2nd, year 2020, the Japan Times newspaper said the following: we're talking about a new Japanese defense plan for the military. These are official protocols, the purpose of which is to determine how soldiers should react to the appearance of UFOs. There are already instructions for the military in the face of such appearances. At the sight of a UFO, pilots should invite it to change course, shoot it if it enters national airspace, or force it to land. However, Defense Minister Taro Kono believes that these measures need to be updated. According to him, it is unclear whether they are effective in the event of a collision with the UFO. Thus, the authorities will draw up new protocols regarding the response, registration, and monitoring measures that will be taken in such cases. According to the minister, the unknown nature of these devices may cause confusion among pilots. The Japanese military has never claimed to have encountered a UFO. This has never happened despite the fact that several bases, including in Hokkaido and Okinawa, are equipped to detect objects of unknown origin. So, whom to believe, so to say? Of course, there have been UFO sightings over Japan and nearby Soviet Union and the territories such as the Kuril Islands, Sea of Okhotsk, and so forth. They know. They're watching each other. And someone else, more advanced, able to fly their craft at maneuvers we can't even comprehend, at incredible velocities, in the air and underwater, they're watching too. I'll bring you more interesting observations of the Russians about other countries' UFO phenomenon. And of course, I'll bring you more about Soviet UFO observations and of course, current UFO observations in Russia and Eurasia. Thank you for your attention to my work. If you can support my research, you will find how to do it in the description to this video. Please like my videos. Please tell others about my channel.